Okay, I'm Will Lewis. I'm hosting our guest speaker today, Jeff Allen. Let me give a little bit of background on Jeff first, and then we'll jump into his talk. So Jeff has actually been working in the industry of translation services and MT actually for a couple of decades. His BA is originally in French linguistics, and he has a MA and PhD in Creole linguistics. But I won't go through his entire work history here, but some of the crucial projects that he's worked on places where he's worked over time have been like the Center of Machine Translation in the Language Technologies Institute at Carnegie Mellon. He was also, he worked for ELDA, which is the European Evaluation Language Resource Distribution Agency, essentially the equivalent of the LDC here in this country. Worked there for a couple of years, and he's also advised and worked with Sistran and translations.com over time as well. He's currently at SAP and on the advisory board for Multilingual Magazine and Linguist List. And I do want to point out that Jeff has done a lot of work on Haitian Creole over the past 2 decades. In fact, he's been the champion, I think, in a way, for Haitian Creole and technologies for Creole. And he did a lot of work immediately following the disaster in January in getting data, Haitian Creole data, that was in IPR basically released so that, that it could be used for a variety of projects, including ours. A lot of this data has been made publicly available through CMU, where he used to work, and there's still more data coming online. And it's almost amazing, actually, if you think about the fact that a lot of this data became available within days after the emergency. It's something that there was no publicly available data for Haitian Creole, and then within a few days there was a whole bunch of publicly available data thanks to Jeff's work. He was initially involved, one of the premier Haitian Creole projects was the Diplomat Speech-to-Speech project at CMU about a decade ago. And that's where a certain percentage of the data has come from. And he's still working on getting more of that data that's still under IPR available for general use. And I do want to issue a thanks to Jeff for having been a champion of our own project as well. As you know, Microsoft released Haitian Creole Engine within a matter of a couple weeks after the disaster, which was the first statistical machine translation, publicly available statistical machine translation for the Haitian Creole language ever to be released. And in no small part to a lot of Jeff's efforts, it gave us the kind of foundational data we use for building that project. So I turn you over to Jeff Allen.
Thanks. So the audience, are any of you non-geeks? So do we have only geeks, technology geeks, or do we have non-geeks here? So non-geeks, what do the non-geeks do for a living? So so we do have some linguists, translators, or anybody else doing anything else?
I'm an interpreter.
Interpreter, translator, interpreter. Brett?
The advisor to the Commander General Mattis, United States Central Command.
So the United States Central Command, okay. He came one of the farthest. Because I kind of want to know who I'm talking to. The reason why I'm here today is because of my wife and my kids. They have been the ones that have negotiated. I had negotiated a lot with them for these 500 hours I spent the last 6 months. And I think we're just going to give a round of applause to my wife and my kids that are in the aquarium today. But I think this is, they have allowed me to do this for the last few months. So I wanted to also give a few things away. Will, you get the multilingual shirt, the silk one. I don't even have one of these. So, Will, this is great. Bev, I have reserved the multilingual coffee cup for you. So you can have it here. She's wanted one of these. I don't have one of these either. So Bev organized for place for me to stay last night, and the family. Thank you, Bev. Who came the farthest to here other than me? I came from France, so anybody come farther than, who's come farther than like out of the state of Washington? Well, there's 2 of you, so you both get t-shirts, so Linguist Lace t-shirts, okay? So I got 3 more T-shirts here. Who speaks the language closest to Haitian Creole as a native language? Anybody in another Creole language? Haitian Creole? Any other Creole language? French? French speakers? French speakers? Hey, I got 2 T-shirts going out. We're done. I got rid of all my T-shirts. This is great. You should all actually have also the magazine Multilingual. We have, this is the interview article about the project that appeared in the March issue, so you should all have a copy. I get 70, so please take 2 or 3 and give them to your friends. I don't want to take them back to France because I don't have enough baggage, so let's make sure we get those 70 issues out and just and do that. So, well, the title of the talk, what people told me, the dry, geeky title of the talk is the issues and challenges of putting minority languages or low data languages or less prevalent or lesser commonly taught or whatever we want to call them languages into online translation portals or even software. The what I want to call the non-geeky title, what I want to call the talk today, is for the case study part, that is the Haitian Creole, but this applies to a lot of other languages too, is we're from a standing start. We're not sprinted down, but we're at a standing start. And where's that happening? Well, it happened from a dining room in France, and this is just me, and a basement in Colorado Springs, and 3 KOA campgrounds on the road from Colorado Springs to Oregon, and from a house on the Oregon coast, and lots of Wi-Fi spots and kind of all over the Pacific Northwest, and 3G wireless internet while on the road with, the phone. So, plus a lot of other people that have been involved, a lot of volunteers. This has been probably one of the most complex program management things I've ever done in my career. So, so just an outline of things, and it's a lot of points, but it'll go quick. We'll have time for lots of questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Put your hand up and ask a question because I want this to be interactive. That's the goal of this. But so some of the things I want to cover, kind of an inventory or a status of where we are today is, sorry I didn't put the flying in animation, but I'm on vacation, so I just kind of finished this last night. Where are we with like the websites for Haitian Creole? This is the case study for this language, but it applies to lots of others. And what do we do with this language resource, or LR, situation with the data? And for natural language processing, NLP, or human language technologies, there's another word, where we are with that for Haitian Creole, and we could apply that to other ones. We have to look at it. What's the status of these natural language processing systems today? And that covers both software and hardware, because you've got both, a lot of different challenges on those. What do we do? Do we have articles and conference talks on these for the Creole languages? What about available language resource data and content? And that includes I've got some new announcements, some new data I've been negotiating. And I've still got some more that I hope this talk is going to allow us to be able to promote to release. So, and I'll cover that in a couple minutes. With the data and process, other potential data, and what are some data usage achievements, what we do pre-disaster, and what was done post-disaster, and what are some concerns about language resources, and what are concerns about projects. What are you going to get to get a project up and going? So I really hope that as we go through this outline, that we see that this Haitian Creole one was just one example of 6,000 others. And we don't know what's going to be the next language that might a disaster for, but then there are all kinds of, we'll talk about the project I worked on that was actually for military intervention, humanitarian relief activities, and peacekeeping operations. That's what the project was for. That's why we were ready, because we already built the system many years ago. So, and then I'm really thankful for the folks that helped put up my new website. They actually created the domain and the marketing name for it for me. I didn't create it. I just said to somebody, hey, you know me. So they said, Allen Keys to Languages would just be kind of cool. And I said, let's do it. So they created the domain and registered it, and other folks created the site for me, the WordPress site, and I just put content in it. So I'm just thankful. All the credits are up on the site and stuff. I don't want to go through all the names of everybody. I'd be sitting here all day thanking everybody. But this has been a huge a lot of things happening for us to be able to announce what's happening, where things are, and so others can like Microsoft can come and use that and then and move on. So if you see my Facebook, it's just every day. I'm doing a little bit of vacation stuff recently, but it is kind of talking a lot about Creole. But the first really thing that happened afterwards was after I did my master's, my doctoral work, I had worked on Creole languages and then couldn't put money on the table, food on the table for the family. So I went into machine translation at Caterpillar, and got a call 2 years later from Caterpillar one day and said, "Hey, we know you've worked with us in Creole and we are in machine translation, and we've heard that you do Creole too, and we just have this opportunity to do a speech-to-speech bidirectional English Creole, Haitian Creole system. Would you be interested?" And I said, "How fast? This is a dream job." So I went there and spent a couple years doing that, building this portable English, Haitian Creole bidirectional system, and also Korean, and also Serbo-Croatian, and we were working on Arabic too, and all that. So that was kind of the first system, and it was in 1997, 1998, and that's what a lot of this data came from that we've released here and recently. And there were no known updates. It was sitting in the box, so hasn't been used for the past decade. Then I was on the board for MIT2, so Mason Integration Technologies, so it's called MIT2 because she worked at MIT, so she called it MIT2. So it kind of helped try to get that off the getting going, and we created a business plan, a 120-page business plan, marketing plan, did product development plan for 30 products, and that's been sitting on a shelf because everybody thought I was nuts 10 years ago. Everybody told me that signed NDAs and everything. Everybody said, "There's no market, Jeff, for Creole languages." That's what I was told 10 years ago. So that system sitting in a box for 10 years. The business plan for all these Creole languages was sitting in a box for 10 years. And my wife and I had supported a Haitian child through Compassion International for 7 years, and all written in Creole. And I'm sitting in front of television crying in January, just crying. So I had to do something, or I'd probably be miserable to the end of my days, to be able to help, not just put the Haitian or help the Haitian Creole be put up on the internet or in different forms and different server, different applications, but just to get data, so we can do more. So so this is, and I say the standing start, and we'll see that, this is what happens when everything's a lot is ready already. But the question would be, what do you do when you don't have this ready? And what are going to be the challenges to push forward for other languages? We did put out the data, and as Will said, the first system that was up and running within, the talk is 4 days, 17 hours and 5 minutes, something like that. So 30 minutes. So that's how quick it happened. Once a certain amount of data was released, plus extra data, there was other data too, and I'll mention what I kind of see of other data. And there's probably more too. I'm sure everybody's got more, but and there are issues with that and dealing with that. But so within 5 days, the first system was up, and then of course all the competitors coming up. Theirs a week later, and then the BlackBerry. I have been doing BlackBerry demos all the time because it's the only one that I've got on there. When in Google and Microsoft, I show Microsoft Messenger, to people on my BlackBerry or on the Pocket PC. And then at the Crisis Camps Paris, on the end of April, one of the folks that are one of the PhD students in the MT machine translation field, he came with a 1 laptop per child, running with the Moses open source machine translation, statistical machine translation system, running on this little toy laptop, locally, not even, no connection. They kind of tweak it to get it to run on this old toy laptop, and there are what I've heard is there are 23,000 of these 1 laptop child laptops out in Haiti today. Not with the translation system. There have been 23,000 of these things out there. So if we get a translation system running on this, you just take the sticks out and you can put them in, or maybe you can download it. But there's so much potential for spreading being able to translate materials from English into Haitian Creole for the kids. There's huge potential. So there's a lot of things happening that have been happening, and this has put really a huge impact with trying to motivate and say there's no debate if it's a language anymore. So everybody debates if this is language. What is this? Well, when you put something into a translation system, you can't. I told my Haitian colleagues years ago when we developed this speech-to-speech system, once you put it into a translation system, there's no debate what it is anymore, because you can't translate from a language into a, well, what is this non-language kind of thing? They both have the same social status. And this is very, very important to have these technologies in here, because this gives a lot of ability to negotiate with now the political leaders of the countries to say you should be able to put this education reform now should be make it available it should be an official language. Haitian Creole is an official language, but it's not necessarily the one that all the education materials are written in. It doesn't have the social status. But once you put it into those technologies, there's no more discussions. It's just they want it to happen.